Welcome to Me Reimagined, a space where we step into the impossible version of ourselves, a version we only dream of, so we can create lives we love and the impact we are meant to make. Hi, welcome. So this episode is for those of you who woke up this morning, and even though you slept, you felt brittle when you woke up. You felt heavy, like you'd been hit by a truck. And you didn't want to get out of bed. It felt easier just to become part of the mattress. And this episode is for those of you who woke up this morning and in that heaviness and that laying in bed, your mind starts racing. You start thinking about all of the things that you've got to do. You're mapping out not only what's going to happen at what time, but then all the micro things that need to happen to be able to get all of those tasks, all of those errands, all the organizing done, from work and meetings and projects to childcare to groceries to time with friends even. It comes with micro tasks that make you feel exhausted before you even sit up. And maybe you love your life in theory. You like your friends. You're married or you're not married. You have kids or you don't have kids. But whatever the case, you've created this life and it's not miserable. It just kind of feels miserable. It's not really working. But let's think about this for a minute. What if in the midst of all that, you felt light? You felt extraordinary in the ordinary. You felt extraordinary in the mundane. You felt extraordinary in a life that just feels like drudgery and work. You could feel extraordinary when you feel like you have just a whole lot of stuff on your plate and you just kind of want to rest. It is possible. It is possible to come at this from resourced wholeness rather than depletion. And so that's what this episode is about, how to do that. But let's start looking at what traps you're in. These were the traps that I was in 10 years ago. So where you see yourself, know that you have a partner in crime that went through this as well. So they're not pretty, but they're human. And what is very cool is that these loops, these knots that you've tangled yourself in, we can untangle them. So that's quite fun. So the first thing that you might be going through right now is that loop of performance. You are trying to do life right. And there is a right way in your mind to do it. So I used to do that quite a bit. And then I got to a moment in life where I couldn't. I couldn't do it right. I couldn't do it the way I had in my head. And then that left me in a big quandary. What do I do with that? So the first thing was I was 100% at work, right? 110% my job. I went above and beyond all the time. That's how I got promotions. That's how I was trusted. That's a lot of what my identity was built around. That idea that I not only did it right, I did it better than right. And so I replied to all the emails. I made all the meetings, even if I thought that they were useless and not needed. I sat through my boss's crises and supported that emotionally when that should have been his own job. And then when my son was born, I was gonna be 110% a mother, and when I was on maternity leave, that wasn't an issue because I did actually sign off for that period, and I could wake up every 2 hours and nurse. I could pump like a maniac. I could even when he was a toddler, I'd take him to the park all the time. Who the hell as an adult really wants to go to the park? And it certainly wasn't me. Um, but I went all the time because that is what a good mother did, and I was doing that stuff right. And so, homemade food, homemade costumes, like, I did it all. But then I went back to work, and then I hit that point of, "Uh-oh, what do I do? I cannot be 220% of a person, and if I'm doing both of these 110%, what am I gonna do now?" And so, something had to give. And it took a long while before it gave. I'm a hard-headed learner. I like to smack my head up against what life is giving me, and you may also be like that, and it's okay. I just wanna tell you it's okay. If you learn easily, excellent. You've saved yourself a lot of misery, but if you learn hard, what I mean to say is that what you're experiencing in that moment that you're learning it, you're getting a depth on the other side. So if it feels so painful, there is the equivalent of joy that you are earning in that moment. So never forget that because you can only feel as much joy as you feel pain and sadness and anger and all the negative emotions. The bigger or deeper you go into those, the bigger you're going to be able to go into joy later. So that is just a little pat on the back and say, it's okay if you're a hard headed learner. But as a hard-headed learner, I tried to do it all. I tried to do it right, and when I couldn't do it right, I was hard on myself, and when I was hard on myself, whoosh, that came right out because you can only be as kind and loving with other people as you are with yourself, and so I snapped at my staff. I snapped at my toddler. I shouted at my toddler. I was late to meetings. Um, I then sometimes said, "I don't need to be here." And it's probably true. I'm not sure that I did need to be there, but I definitely tuned out. I wasn't present in my life anywhere. I'd go to the playground and my mind would be racing, pre-planning everything for dinner, pre-planning what I was gonna do in the meeting. It never stopped. And then I would just try to make it to the weekend, right? So you work hard all week and then you think, "Whew, it's a come down on the weekend," but it wasn't. Because I was also still trying to maintain my former lifestyle before being a single mom. And as a single mom with a toddler who liked to wake up early, I don't know why, but he still does at like 5 and 6 a.m., you know, and you'd go out to dinner with friends, and then there'd be some drinks. And then, after a second glass or a third glass of wine, you'd say, well, maybe we don't need to go home right away. And then it would be midnight, 1, 2, before you got home into bed. And then 4 hours later, your toddler needs the best of you. And he didn't have the best of me. And so on the weekends, there was no relief. There was no come down. I didn't get to sleep in. I didn't Yeah, I just drenched it in alcohol and continuing to go out with friends, things that had given me amusement and numbing before. I also did a lot of Netflix. Does that sound familiar to anybody? You get lost in a series, and the series to the point where the series becomes more real than your life. In fact, when you turn the series off, it's almost like you emerge from the TV, and then you look around and you think, "This looks unfamiliar." And, So, what that numbing did, what that trying to maintain old patterns and lifestyles did, was to ensure that I was never at rest. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like you go through all week, you are just looking to just sit down, to close your eyes for a minute, to not have anyone need anything from you? including yourself, because emotionally, a lot of times you need something from yourself. And even that feels like weight and work. But if you could just shut off the responsibilities, shut off all the things there are to do, shut off your brain for just a minute and just be. That is literally what you would love to do. What's cool is you can. And it isn't going to be about doing more of the same. So imagine starting your day differently with clarity instead of dread. So instead of waking up and laying in bed and your mind starts racing over all the things you have to do and you just pull the covers up over your face, and that dreadful feeling is like a heavy pressure hand on your chest, isn't it? Or maybe it's in your head, maybe it shows up differently for you. But imagine waking up and not having that hand pushing down on your chest because you're resourced. Imagine feeling like you belong in this body, and when you get out of bed, you're not full of inflammation, you're not achy, your step doesn't feel heavy, it feels light. And imagine knowing that you were gonna miss a deadline, gonna be late, not gonna remember your toddler's lunch, and it was gonna be okay because you could give yourself a compassionate hug and look at how much you did do. And imagine being able to choose things and do things in your life on a daily basis that were not about adding up to being enough, that were not about proving, right? So making choices at work about what meetings you were going to go to, not because you felt like you needed to be present in all the meetings to show that even though you, for me, had a kid, or even though you have an outside hobby that you love doing, whether it's writing, whether it's um, doing interior decor, and maybe you've started a little side hustle, side business, right? Just because that's what you love to do. But then that makes you show up even in more meetings because you're proving that just because you have these extra things outside, you are still 110% committed to that job. And so then you don't say no to anything at work, meetings, projects. But imagine being able to say no because you're guided by self trust and you already know that you're doing enough. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it is possible that you don't have to quit your life. You don't actually even have to change your life to change how you feel in it. It is possible. But so let's look at the second thing that you might be doing. So the first was about performance and kind of trying to do it right, trying to be enough. So the second thing you could call maybe the myth of rest. That rest is something external that you do. So you take a me day, you go to a retreat, you book a massage, you have energy work, you go out to a restaurant with friends just to blow off some steam. You let yourself have a night watching Netflix. But all of these things that you're doing, you go get a pedicure or manicure, right? All of these things that you're doing, they don't really help the burnout recede. That kind of brittle, fragile feeling that you have, like if one more thing comes your way, you're going to fall apart, but you're not going to fall apart because you never fall apart. That is absolutely what you're not going to do. And so it's like every muscle in your body is tense. And for those of you who are not watching this video, I was shaking, just tensing my muscles. Stop for just a minute and think about the muscles right around the outside of your eyes. Are they tight? Can you relax them if you concentrate right now? If you can relax them, if you notice a tension in your jaw, right where the mandible, the bottom and the top meet. If there's tension there and you can relax that right now, if you have tension in your shoulders, And you notice that right now, if you're sitting there and you close your eyes and you concentrate on it, it goes, that means you are carrying around this tension with you everywhere you go because your nervous system has not chilled out. Your nervous system is in survival mode, it is in overdrive. And so, even if you take a me day and you watch some Netflix, the thing inside you that's causing that, it doesn't go away. And so, rest doesn't come from outside things that you do. Rest comes from inside. And I'm going to go into that in just a little bit. But so, what if you didn't need to take a break from your life because you could access that rest at any point in time inside your life, inside you? And what if you knew how to find and be aware of the fact that you're stressed out? So noticing those little muscles, because if you were like me 10 years ago, then you're walking around and you're not aware that your jaw is clenched, especially when your boss comes into the room. You may be aware of that one, right? But the other smaller things you're not aware of. So what if you knew how to be aware of that and then knew how to release that? And what if you didn't have to earn rest, right? How many of us don't take a me day until we've earned it? We've done enough to justify needing one. Because that monkey on your shoulder that says you shouldn't need a me day, how much are you doing? You're not doing any more than anybody else. That monkey, we need to give him a hug and put him to bed. He doesn't have a job anymore. And when he doesn't have a job, then you don't have to earn rest. Rest is deserved. But imagine walking around your life in that state. That would be amazing. So, the other potential thing that you may be doing is letting your inner critic, that monkey, who sometimes doesn't look like a monkey, sometimes it looks like your mother, sometimes it looks like your boss, sometimes it's like a weird amalgamation of all three, so the big ears and the the, like, higher voice of your mother and the, like, shoulders of your boss in a dress. Um, but whatever your inner critic, your monkey looks like, how often are you aware of the voice that says, "You should be doing this better. You should be better at this. You should have already mastered this. You shouldn't be tired. You shouldn't need to rest." If you just and then there's a whole litany of things that comes after that, right? So, like, if you worked harder, if you were more organized, if you weren't so forgetful, if you were more disciplined, if you didn't procrastinate so much, if you hadn't watched that series, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, it will find it and it will lay it out there for you and it will say that this is the reason that you don't feel okay and you're doing it to yourself. And I mean, that just layers that on, right? So not only do you not feel rested, but then your inner critic is on top of that saying that you're the one who's at fault for not feeling rested. I mean, our systems are just, I mean, it's quite cool because they're set up to protect us, right? Protect us from failing. And that does keep you going. It's quite motivating. But there's a point where you won't be able to continue to go. So, what if in your life you felt like, ha, there's that voice again, but that voice is wrong. And you actually just brushed off your shoulders and it felt okay. And what if instead of perfection, you searched for compassion? And when you started to hear that voice, you thought, oh, I'm going to need a hug now. And you literally gave yourself a hug, or you got out a hairbrush and you brushed your hair. That was what I always loved. I always wanted my mom to brush my hair. And what if when that voice spoke up, because that's the other thing, these voices, they're not going anywhere. That was a surprising thing for me, 10 years, 15 years in, that inner critic still shows up sometimes, but the difference is how I respond to it, how I react. And so when I hear it, when you hear it, what if your response wasn't, and the hunching? Do you remember the hunt? Well, maybe you're hunching now. The hunching, where you walk around with your shoulders down, trying to be almost invisible because you feel like you have the weight of the world on you. You feel responsible for all of it. You feel like it's your fault that it's not all perfectly fixed. And you don't want anyone to see it. You feel ashamed. So, what if when you heard that voice, you didn't react like that? You didn't feel the weight of proving your worth at work or at home? What if your shoulders were back and you danced with the monkey because the monkey needed something to do? that, that could be what you do. You choreograph a dance to do every time. But what I want to say, and I will tell you the 4 truths in just a moment that changed my life that you can implement in your life to get a really different outcome. But what if you didn't have to prove your worth anymore? What if you moved through the world differently? So I can tell you from personal experience that when you believe that you're enough, when you realize that rest doesn't come from outside but from inside, when you do these things, when you get the inner critic, the monkey off your back, and you give it some compassion and another job to start dancing, your world changes. And actually, in the beginning, nothing in your external world changes. Everything looks the same, only you're moving through it differently to the point where people ask you what you're taking, or people ask you if you're seeing a therapist, or people ask you if you've gone to a retreat because you used to do those, or maybe you still do those. But whatever the case, you're moving through the world with joy, where you used to move through the world with misery and dread. And instead, you're waking up full of sunshine. And so, because you feel that inside, that is what is translating out into your reality. And then what happens is you do begin to get different results. Where you would have snapped and responded with anger and frustration and impatience and defensiveness, then you respond with curiosity and patience and love and vulnerability. And those things engender different outcomes. And when you start to get different outcomes, then your whole life does change. But it was driven by the inside change that came first. So, what I want to do is take you through 4 truths that changed everything for me. And they're truths that are not rocket science, and they're truths that you can begin to put into play in your life today. And there's practices that go with them. So the first one comes from this idea that the stress you have in your body. So you remember I was talking about are the muscles around your eyes, your jaw, back of your shoulders, even my thighs. That's where I held a lot of tension. I'd noticed they were tight, tense, and I couldn't, no matter how much I focused on them, I couldn't fully make them relax. And it was almost as if I was ready just to run at any moment. And there were times that I did feel like I wanted to run away from my life. And I hope if you feel that right now, that you will take these 4 practices, you will put them in play, and you will come back here and tell me how they work. Do they not work? If they don't work, let's look at that. Because this isn't a one size fits all approach. This is what worked for me. This is also supported by evidence and learning and training. But just because my experience and my training come together and work for me doesn't mean that's exactly what will work for you. But what's very cool is that I've had a lot of trial and error. And so if you come and you do coaching with me, if you come and you enter our 14-day abundance experience, our rose-colored glasses experience, you get to speak with us directly, and we take what we know about trial and error and apply it to you, and we figure out what does work for you. And so the first thing is that stress, the stress you feel in your eyes, your shoulders, in my thighs, it doesn't end even though the stressor has ended. So let's say you were in a car accident. Once it's over, they tow the car away, you go home, you sit down for dinner, it's over. And if there was no major injury, yeah, maybe your car is totaled, but if there's no major injury, nobody nobody's really badly hurt, then that technical stressor is over, right? You fled from the lion, but your body doesn't know that. Your body did not receive a signal that it's over. The same thing happens when you're at work and your boss is a micromanager, or your boss is really critical and minimizes everything you do because that's what they do to themselves. Or when you're at work and the donors have requested 10 different things that most often don't make any sense, and they all have deadlines associated with them that make you feel like you're slowly drowning. That's chronic stress. And when you are under chronic stress, your body doesn't know that the stressor is over. When you sign off on that final report that goes out to the donors, when your boss is out for the week and you can finally just chill out and work, your body doesn't know any of that. And so the stress continues. You do not relax inside. So you actually have to release the stress. And this is backed up by science. So doctors Emily and Amelia Nagoski have published a book on this, and they've got all the data to back it up. But you actually have to flip the switch in your body. You have to get rid of the stress and you have to turn the signal off that you are in stress. And then that is when rest starts. So you have to get out of your mind and into your body in some fashion. Now, that can be a lot of different things. It can be anything from meditation, which, if you're like me, you will find difficult when your mind is still going like this. And we get in muscle memory, right? And your mind has muscle memory too. And so even when there's nothing for it to whir about, it will search for something to whir about, and it will take the most mundane small thing, hook on to that and spin it because it needs something to do, like the monkey on your shoulder. You make it go dance. You got to give your mind something to do too. So find something for your mind to do. Mel Robbins, in one of her podcasts, had suggested searching as you walk around your house, as you walk around the city, as you walk around nature. Doesn't matter where you are. You search for heart shapes. I quite like that one. You'll notice that for those of you watching, I have hearts on my jumper. But it's quite fun, actually, and it directs your mind so that your mind is not then creating stress from the inside in the absence of a stressor, because you get habituated to that state, and your body, because it's familiar, will try to recreate it because it has memorized that state and your mind wants something to do. So the first thing you need to do is turn them off. Turn the mind off, right? Find a way to calm your mind, whether it's meditation, whether it's jumping in a very cold lake, whether it's dancing and singing all the lyrics, whether it is counting numbers. If you say random numbers, you can jar your mind out of things. So 37, 58, 92, they are not in order. You can, for me, it's breath work. That's what I always do. It stresses your body, but in that stress, it's a healthy stress. And that gets the energy flowing and evacuates the stress. You can exercise, but it can't be a light jog. It has to be an actual, like, gasping type of exercise, right? Um, so if you're hula hooping, which is quite a fun way to get rid of it. You have to be going fast enough or doing multiple hula hoops in different locations so that you are totally engaged. It is taking every bit of your attention, your focus, your energy, and it leaves you exhausted. That's essentially what you're trying to do in whatever it is that you choose. The second thing that changed everything for me once I started living it. Oh, and before I go into this, just one more thing on the stress. You have to do this every day before you go to bed, before you get up in the morning, because sometimes your dreams, oh, they're stressful. Who else wakes up at night and cannot stop the mind? I have to do breath work at night sometimes. And yeah, so you've got to dump it. And if you're going through a really stressful period and it is not just your regular chronic stress, you might have to breathe. That's what I did 4 times a day. You might have to hula hoop 4 times a day. You might have to go for a run 4 times a day. But whatever it is, become conscious that even though the stressor has stopped, the stress is still in you. And the stress is being driven from the inside out. So, into the second truth point that changed my life that will change yours once you start implementing this. There is no right way. There is nothing that needs to be fixed. There is just your way. So, that monkey that we talked about earlier, it can learn to be kind. It can learn to be supportive. Right now, it is just in what you learned. And often what you learned was to be hard on yourself, right? Because in the hardness, you make yourself lock it up. You make yourself push forward. You It's a fear-based response that drives your progress, that drives your improvement, that ensures that you're not going to fail, that you will succeed. And yet, I found that it was the thing that was holding me back from true success. Because you may get success in your life. You may make all those meetings. You may get that promotion. You may have a child who is perfectly cleaned with a cute little outfit who goes to school every day. You will have a miserable life if you're trying to do it right and you're not trying to do it your way and your monkey is in improvement mode. And this one, I think, is one of the hardest things to master because it's a really soft thing. And for those of us who are good at being hard on ourselves and who think that hardness is useful, which is definitely what I thought, it's really hard to let this go and to soften and to be soft with yourself. But then you think about a child. When that child is in that age, once they get to be about 5 or 6, and we assume they should already know this, which is what we assume about ourselves, we're hard with the child. But when they're in that age where we know that they don't yet know, they are 2, they have no idea that if they touch a hot pan, it's going to burn them. Often, you're not hard with them. You take the time to train them. But in that switch between we trained them once, they should have known they shouldn't have been human and erred and messed up, we turn hard. And from there, the hardness starts and never stops. And so you're just following habit. It's familiar. And what you can do is the same way you teach a child, you teach your monkey kindness. And you make a list, right? You are enough. You don't need to prove that you're enough. And every day you write this list. So you write a list of your strengths, the things you like. You write a list of how you were productive and performed that day. That still does count. You don't have to take it away. You just have to expand it because that's only one small piece of what makes you worthy. And actually, if you took that out and you didn't perform, you'd still be worthy because that doesn't define you. And so the idea is that if somebody came into your office and confided in you, if your child cried on your shoulder, if a friend called you up and said, I need some help, what is it about you that actually made them feel safe enough to do those things? It is because you were solidly, reliably consistent for your child and you gave them comfort. That's why they're okay to cry on your shoulder. The person who came into your office and shared something vulnerable at work, you created that safe space. The friend who called you up and asked for help knows you're going to show up and have their back because you did before. So your worth is much larger than you see right now. And to be honest, I'm giving you a very basic exercise because if you're like me and solidly entrenched in that, it's going to take you a while before you get to the idea that, like a mountain, your worth is your worth, and you don't actually have to do anything other than simply sit there and be. But a lot of times that's too much of a stretch for somebody in the beginning. So if you're working on this, what I want you to do is make a list every day, every single day. It takes you 2 minutes. Make a list of what you feel grateful for yourself of, like what is it that you love about yourself and you feel grateful that you are this way, that you do these things, that you have this thing about yourself, this trait. So the other myth that I touched on that you need to start incorporating in your life is that rest isn't something that you plan, it's not something that you do, it's something that you practice. Okay? And you don't have to wait for the weekend. Rest is not old patterns. Rest is not Netflix. Rest and being resourced and not depleted is not venting to friends. It is not getting a manicure and pedicure. Those are all external things. It is finding that stillness inside you. Now, I can't tell you exactly how to find that stillness. I can tell you what I do. I can tell you what has worked for many other people, but you'll have to play with it. This has to be something that you really want for yourself. Enough that when you want to watch that extra Netflix series, which means that you're going to stay up past your bedtime because you're in that, there's a term for it. I forget exactly what it is, but it's like when you're rebelling and you don't go to sleep because that's your leisure time and you guard your leisure time beyond anything else. And god damn if you're going to give it up. Like, and so you're going to bed at 2 a.m. and you got to get up at 6 to go to work, to get the kids ready for school because you said you'd meet a friend to go running before work. Whatever it is, you're getting up. You're going to wake up with dread on your chest. So, where you say no to the Netflix because you want to feel rested, you want to enjoy that run, you want to look forward to going into work. And you know that you need to have sleep to be able to do that. And you say no, and instead you choose to breathe for 20 minutes before going to sleep, which helps you sleep deeper. Or you read something that you find inspiring. Or you make a list, like I said, of what you're grateful for about yourself, about what on in your day. That is where the practice comes in. So when you are choosing things in your environment, in your spiritual world, in your mental world, you're noticing thoughts that you're thinking and you're redirecting your attention. Rest is in the small choices that we make every day. And when we begin to make more of those choices in ways that support us, our feeling of rest and resourcedness becomes bigger. You don't feel as depleted. And then the last thing that was a very hard truth for me to learn, because I learned as a child that self sufficiency was prized above everything. And when I was trying to be 220% of a mother, I almost fell apart. I didn't fall apart because that is not something I did. And I have a feeling that you, as the high achieving, performance driven person who feels absolutely unfulfilled and wondering, is this all there is to life? I'm working so bloody hard for what? For this feeling? Because this is not what they showed it like in the 80s. You got in the Corvette with the glasses and you hair back in the wind and you drove into the sunset and you felt amazing. And so you're working so hard and you're asking yourself, really? This doesn't feel like I thought it was. But when you're not feeling like that, and when you're trying to be 220% of a person, learn to ask for help. Asking for help is not failure. It's actually leadership. It's self leadership. You are giving a gift to yourself and a gift to others at the same time. It is a win win. First, you empower others when you let go. They take more ownership. They step up in ways. Idun has a story, my co founder has a story about this when she was trying to do all the things and she stepped back. Her husband stepped up and stepped in without specifying anything. You'll notice direct reports do that. You'll notice colleagues step up. You'll notice family and friends step up when you step back. Give yourself that gift of grace. It's less for you to do. They feel good about themselves. And who doesn't like to help somebody? How many of us get our identity and sense of usefulness and relevance from the idea that we helped somebody that day? I am quite sure on your gratitude list, if you're making them, that how you helped somebody is going to make that list. So give that gift to somebody else and then give yourself the gift of taking a break. So if you cannot do this, because this was very hard for me to learn, this is where I was that hard headed learner again, right? Do it in the small things. Do it when you don't really need help, just to show yourself that actually it's nice that you can do this. So, for example, I went to a community recently and I had some baggage in the trunk, and it wasn't really that many. I'm used to carrying, 3 or 4 things all at one time. And I had 2 people offer to help me at the same time. And I just said, sure. We get to the car. They each took 2 bags, and then there was nothing for me to carry. And I felt a little ridiculous. But I reminded myself that I'm showing myself I can ask for help, and it's actually brilliant because it induces gray area in what I thought was black and white. I need to be self sufficient to have worth. No, actually, I already have worth, so much so that people are offering to help me, even though I can do it by myself. So, where in your life are you not asking for help? And how could you give yourself the feeling of relief by allowing yourself to ask? And if it's so hard to ask, where in your life can you find something small that you don't really need and practice? Just practice that because then what that does is over time it builds that muscle. And then when you have a bigger need, you can ask. And when there is somebody there to give you that emotional support, when there's somebody there to take a major task off your plate and give you time and give you energy back, those are massive gifts. And when that person gets an influx of, wow, I feel good about myself. I really helped Megan. I really helped Jennifer. I really helped Jessica. I really helped Elaine. Then you've given a gift to somebody else. There is no losing in this situation. You just have to get over the vulnerability. So those are the 4 truths, the 4 ways that I changed, right? And when you change that way, you wake up differently. You might still wake up early. My son ensured that, but you wake up with breath, not dread. And now I wake up intentionally. I do not lay in bed, either look at my phone and scroll through that or let my mind run rampant with, oh God, you've got to do this and this and this. I don't let my mind start pre planning. I get out of bed on a different side some days, very intentionally to create new neural networks in my brain. I breathe every morning. I breathe to get the energy flowing, to get the energy moving, to get under whatever story is going to arrive in my head about that day, to get underneath it and touch that stillness inside of myself. So these are not huge things that mean that you have to change your life to achieve them. These are small rituals, but they are rituals. They are very intentional. They are very defined. I do this every morning. Sometimes I change it up on purpose, but I know I'm going to change it. I know how I'm going to change it. You are a massive planner in your life. You have the ability to put this into play. And when you do, you find yourself showing up. You go to work, but you no longer bleed out for it, right? You don't sacrifice so much. You still show up as a parent, but you're present. You're not responding to pressure. The life outside, it doesn't change that much. But because you've changed inside, it all feels incredibly different. You're no longer a woman surviving her life. You are a woman who is in her body. You're not disconnected from the body because the body feels painful. And waking up with that pressure of dread in the morning, that's painful. So the first thing I used to do is disconnect, but now I don't. And now you add in these few things and you become a woman who is resourced, a woman who is responsive to life, not reactive. And you feel extraordinary even when your life hasn't changed. And then your life begins to change because, again, you're responding to life differently. And so life shows up differently. If you are ready to feel different, to feel extraordinary, come and just try. Try a little bit of what I mean. Take our 14-day abundance experience. Step into our group for 14 days, not a huge commitment. Add some of these practices at changing your point of view, at calming your mind, at getting into your body, into the silence. And you will see a massive difference in your life. And you've got nothing to lose. But you know that doing more of the same and doing it harder and doing it more intensely, it isn't going to add up to what you're really seeking, because what you're really seeking is being present in your life and feeling restful. So try and do something different. Join us. The link is in the show notes. With love.